Welcome to the June 26, 2026 meeting of the Administration Committee of the Agribusiness Development Corporation. I am the chair, David Hinazumi. Prior to calling the meeting to order, Alston Plus will explain how the public can participate in this hybrid meeting, which can be accessed by video conference, telephone, or in person.
For all of you joining us online, your microphone will automatically be muted. When the chairperson asks for public testimony, you may click the Raise Hand button found on your Zoom screen to indicate that you wish to testify about that agenda item. The chairperson will individually enable each testifier to unmute their microphone. When recognized by the chairperson, please unmute your microphone before speaking and mute your microphone after you have finished speaking. For those of you joining by phone, when the chairperson asks for public testimony, you may indicate you want to testify by entering star and then 9. A voice prompt will let you know that the host of the meeting has been notified. When recognized by the chairperson, you may unmute yourself by pressing star and then 6 on your phone. A voice prompt will let you know that you are unmuted. Once you are finished speaking, please enter star and then 6 again to mute yourself. For both internet and phone, as well as in-person access, when testifying, you will be asked to identify yourself and organization, if any, that you represent. Each testifier will be limited to 2 minutes of testimony per agenda item.
Thank you, Alston. This meeting is called to order at 10:07 a.m. I will take a roll call of the committee members present. When your name is called, please verbally acknowledge your presence and state who, if anyone over the age of 18, is present in the room with you. This also serves as a roll call vote. For each subsequent vote, I will ask if there are any objections or abstentions. If there are none, then the motion will be approved on the same basis as this initial roll call. Okay, Member Kira Kahahani is excused. Member Jason Watts.
Present and alone.
Member Dane Wicker. Is present. So we do have a quorum to conduct this meeting. Members are reminded to have their cameras turned on and remain on screen during the meeting, especially during the vote, so the record will clearly reflect who was present at the time the vote was taken. Okay, turning to our agenda, approval of minutes, there are none. Moving on to action item C1, review fiscal year 2026 budget and actuals, status update regarding the fiscal year 2027 budget, update on active contracts and projects, and preliminary agency budget planning for fiscal years 2028 and 2029. As fiscal year 2028 represents the first year of the upcoming biennium budget cycle, the budget planning and recommendations will address funding and operational needs for both fiscal years 2028 and 2029. The committee will discuss milestones and priorities in order to provide the agency's board of directors with a report and recommendation regarding fiscal year 2028-2029 budget matters. Is there any member from the public who wishes to testify on this matter?
No hands raised, Chair.
Okay, is there a staff report? Or would staff like to go through the 2028 and 2029 budget?
Yes. Okay. I will share my screen. I just gotta find the right page here. 28. Okay. So would you like, Chair, would you like to just go through the requests part of it? The request for the operational, the request for a CIP?
Let's walk through the
tables, the two tables. Okay.
to the budget itself so we can see, what our budget is looking like in addition to the requests.
Okay. Let's see, share. Okay, can you see my screen?
Yes, thanks, Mark.
Okay. So, and I appreciate um, the committee's uh, help on the, working with committee members to, well, the chair to make sure, and we're going to keep improving on this. So what we're looking at here is uh, we're going to be reviewing the 2028-2029 budget, assuming sort of a flat, like, nothing changes on the expense side, and assuming certain things do not change on the revenue side. We also are going to highlight some of the things that we expect to have changes. So the first item here, looking at this is, covering some costs, and that's the next item on the agenda is the legal fees for the NPDES, permitting in Kekaha. So this is the payment we're going to show as legal fees. The next, and stop me at any time if there's any questions. You want me to elaborate on anything. The Navy, we're going to be replacing a pump there. So this actually will start in 27. So we will experience some expenses, but no revenue in 27 on this, because you have to basically get things going before, and they pay you when it's complete, not, like in between. So we intend to complete this in second or third quarter of 2028. And the expenses, in that we will see in 28 is this, but we will see about $250,000, let's say $220,000 worth of expenses in 2027. There's this, we're expecting to show some some costs on the testing, but we're hoping we will be able to work with area stakeholders to help basically make these costs neutral on some of the testing and related expenses to, pumping. This is the.
And then Mark, sorry, before
Yeah,
you continue, then we need a little bit more discussion related to all this NPDES. So backing up, to the to the legal fees.
Okay.
We need to figure out a way of how we're going to be paying for these expenses. Yeah.
Oh, I see. Okay, so I'm sorry. So as part of the agreement, the Attorney General's office is going to be making a request for the funds. Right now, the Attorney General's office, and that's part of the MOA is going to help cover those funds through their budget. And then the MOA, the upcoming ways for us to reimburse the Attorney General's office. So there are different possibilities there. There's the Attorney General's office is intending to request an appropriation to pay for this. I think we would support their request.
No. Mark.
Yeah.
Mark.
Yeah.
Sorry. So,
Sorry.
where are you getting this information from?
What information?
What you just said?
Oh, well, I think that's what they're.
Because that is not what was ever discussed. What is being discussed is the Attorney General is going to bail us out, pay for the bill, and we got to pay
Right.
it back.
Correct.
Nothing about the AG requesting an appropriation.
Okay. Okay. Then if the
ADC needs to request an appropriation to pay the AG back.
Okay. I thought I misread them. I thought that's what the agreement was, that they were going to.
The AGs have funds available in their budget, and so they're willing to help us out and use those funds to cover us while we get money from the legislature to repay them.
Okay. Okay. My error then. I'm clearly wrong on that. I thought when I read the agreement that if the appropriation was received, then then the bill would be paid, so to speak.
No. Yeah,
But
so that's
I must have misunderstood. I
yeah,
misunderstood then.
sorry. So
I'm
that's in the
mistaken.
last budget meeting we were asking about where the $900,000 is budgeted in ADC to pay them back.
Okay. Okay. So that's at $845,000. Okay. Then my mistake. I think what I should have stated then is that we'll have to make a request, to receive an appropriation for that. Failing to get that appropriation, then we would have to basically use our, we would have to come up with a way to pay the Attorney General back based on our revenue, using our own revenue. Yeah.
Well, that's where we have to talk about this. I think what the chair Hinazumi is mentioning too, right?
Yeah.
If we have money to pay it back, why aren't we paying it back ourselves?
Yeah, that's correct. And so if we did, that would be a question that that if that's the path that we would want to do, then we could do that if we had the funds available.
Correct. And so from what's been told to us by the ED is that ADC does not have the funds to pay these bills. And so
we currently do not have the funds to pay.
Correct, right. So that's why the AG is willing to essentially front us the money.
Right.
But we need to reimburse them.
Correct.
So ADC needs an appropriation of about $1 million, because I think this is with interest too. This is not just like,
Correct. Yeah, there is a annual interest charge. Yeah, correct. Yeah. So
I would like to I'm sorry for a second, Mark. I would like to point out that ADC did, in fact, in the fiscal year 27 budget submission in 27, ADC did request legal fees.
No. You requested. ADC didn't request because the board never voted on it. You guys put a budget together that was never voted on.
Wendy, and wait, go back and explain that, because what was that line item and what was the amount? Because I recall asking questions on that and never got my responses.
Are we talking about fiscal year 27's request, or are we talking about right now?
Are you talking about the one moving forward or the one that was in last year's budget request?
I was pointing out that in last year's budget request, which Chair Watts is correct, the board did not vote to approve. There was a request for the cost of the plan, the cost of the compliance, and the cost of legal fees. And those requests were carried forward by DBED, and the DBED requested budget. And we can certainly ask again in the note that you are, or in the spreadsheet that you're seeing in front of you. It's making the assumption that we are not going to get reimbursement and that we do have to pull it out of our revenue. So that's why you're seeing the $465,089 in legal fees pulled out of the 312 fund. So it's coming out of our lease rent to pay back the AG's office. That's what you're looking at right here. What we did not put in here, to Chair Watts's point, is putting in the request for the board to vote on fiscal year 28, requesting for a ledge appropriation to pay back the AG's office for the legal fees.
I guess my question on that then, Wendy, is if you guys could have done this, why wasn't this done earlier? Why now are you finding a path? You had a whole year to do this last year.
And have communicated that early on. Because I will say, so I've always kept communication open, two-way, and you continuously working around DBED and the board. It causes confusion and it makes everybody look uncoordinated. And so going straight to gov staff asking for funding circumvents the board again, circumvents DBED again. Meanwhile, the Attorney General's office has reached out to DBED and the board saying we're gonna figure out a way to pay for the bill, but can DBED come in and pay us back? And now we have to take that to the board to say, okay, now DBED's coming in, considering using funds from some other program who is responsible to pay for an unapproved expenditure that the ED did. That's where we're currently at, Wendy. I didn't know you were going. The Gov's office told me, why are we getting contacted by Wendy? This is already being fixed. This is already being worked on. But neither Chair Watts nor myself knew that you were going straight to the Gov's office trying to find funding, knowing that it was never approved up front.
And building on that too, Mark, and Wendy, like, so if we have the ability to move things around to pay the bill, why did we get to this point? Because obviously you're showing me that you guys can do it.
I've been asking for a breakdown of the budget to understand, very simple, revenue expenditures for Kauai, revenue expenditures for Oahu. And present that to the board.
In the last admin meeting, we did break it down by revenue and expenses for
The last admin meeting, which was earlier this month.
Yes, we had presented
Okay.
those numbers.
After
We've struggled.
Wendy, pause. After I've been asking since last summer.
So this current, what you guys are showing us right now, you're saying you can pay this off in 2 years?
Yes, that is what we're trying to show.
And I mean, that's also under the assumption that there's no further legal expenses.
That is correct.
So I think two things, right? I mean, if this thing maths correctly, it's great. But I think you still need to have some kind of legal fund or something on the side, because this doesn't sound like it's. I mean, even if we were to conclude today, right, there's still some residual things happening, right? Like if we were to close out today, there's still some other things that possibly could get tacked on, right?
There's always the potential for future losses.
Yeah, and there's additional hearings that are happening too, right? Like I mean, in the near future. So
sorry, just to interrupt. I don't, apologize. Okay, so this is just sort of trying to show what it could look like, assuming several things. But we will need to get an appropriation, because I don't think it doesn't balance out perfect, right? So we are going to need to do that. And but this is just sort of a working document, and we certainly need to improve, especially going through 27. I think what we'll be able to do is, that's what we're working with staff to, to basically tighten up so we can really look at these numbers. And I think we'll be able to do that. I'm confident we'll be able to do that and just move forward that way. And that way, we can manage costs and expenses.
Mark, I understand. What concerns me though is just our inability to get down to the facts, right? Like, I mean, even the spreadsheet. I mean, to your point, like, how much money does ADC have? How much profit and loss does ADC have? The last time you guys talked about moving some things around, and one of the questions was, where are you taking this money from? I think it was $150,000 for the PR contract. So I guess that's what we're trying to just figure out too from a baseline perspective. What is our financial health? And then secondly, because when the ED was asked about the legal fees, it was said that ADC does not have the ability to pay. But you guys are now showing us a document that says you can.
Well, this is just part of that. So in truth, there will be a shortage, right? So that's where, this is sort of a picture of keeping things somewhat the same, and when you add some of these costs on, it doesn't add up very well, right? So, so if we go down the sheet, right, clearly, the picture in 28 and 29 is not a good one. In 27, we're kind of okay, but that's because of the appropriation. But in 28, 29, there's no, a lot of the costs will have to be paid through the rents and things like that, the income, right? So as we go down, there's actually, there's a shortage, right, of about $1.2 million. So then the decision needs to come out is, what do we cut out from this, or how do we generate more revenue, right? And some of those things that's for another necessarily discussion, another meeting, on how we can properly assess benefiting tenants or things like that, some of the actual costs, of operations. Some of the things like fuel. How do we increase fuel charges when fuel costs go up? And it's not the intention for us to we're not looking to make a big profit, right? But we need to at least cover costs. So how do we make sure that we assess people properly to make sure that they're paying, that they're the benefiting tenant or client, that they're charged a fair price for the actual costs. And so as going through this, we just use this example as doing, let's say, like a 50%, but we might have to stretch it out further, right? We might have to, the payment might be slower, but then there'll be interest to that. So this is just sort of a 28, 29 sort of picture. So if we look at, and that was just the ADC part of it, right? The land and rent part of it. And then if you look at some of the water things, so we have, Kauai, East Kauai irrigation, Kekaha, Waihole, there is an appropriation to cover some of the debt for Waiole, which is a huge help for us. And then there's a Waihole irrigation system, right? So, what we might want to do is expand on, because the appropriation will help, expand on making improvements to the Waihole system. But when you look at the water system, right, if you look at the bottom, the water system total revenue would be about, including the appropriation, 6.5 million, but expenses 2.9. So your revenue less expenses is about 3.6. But we subtract out this the money that was appropriated for the debt, because we want to keep that money to keep paying the debt, obviously. So we subtract that out. So at the end, there's an income of about $498,000, about $500,000. So for all of the ADC, it's about like a $2 million shortage, which is about the appropriation right now, right? What we normally would be getting as an appropriation. So clearly, we, either we have to request for the appropriation for 28, or we got to look at either ways to generate more revenue, or we cut expenses, to show that. But I think it's critical that we come up with a plan to do that, so that we can present that to the legislature and see if they're supportive of the plan or not, and so on, right? So that's the 28th part. And then the
Okay.
29th, I'm sorry, go ahead.
Mark, yeah, thanks for the explanation. But before we move on,
Yeah.
what members are, asking about, based on what we have in front of us now, there is no money to pay back the AG's office. We will be in, more than almost 100%. I mean, we're going to be reliant on getting some kind of appropriation because appreciate, the ideas, Mark, as far as how to, see where we can reduce some expenses, see where we can, make assessments to help cover these kinds of costs. But unlikely we're going to be able to drum up $1 million plus
In the next year or so, correct?
Yes. So,
Yeah.
to answer members' questions, yes, from what we can see right now in the financial picture, no ability to pay it, reliant on getting an appropriation. Only thing, only thing that pops up right now is what Mark just shared about this reserve for the, debt service, on the water system, but whether we can touch that money is a whole nother question. So, yes, I would say we're looking at needing an appropriation to cover that. But these
And-
costs will, do need to get passed on, and it's going to increase costs to, to our users and everyone on the, that is being serviced by ADC.
Chair Watts has his hand up, Chair Hinazumi.
Oh, yeah, sorry, good.
Just question that question. So Mark, the reserve portion on the bottom of your chart, the water system, that 3.1, is that the appropriation to clear the Waihole?
Yeah.
That
So what I did for that is the appropriation was actually
It's the real appropriation is $3,985,791. That's what is in the budget, but the governor has not approved that yet. We don't know if that's going to be vetoed or not.
understood.
So what it is what I did was every year, right? If we pay off, if you look at this, the 427,000 in this cell here, that I took off of from, I think it's probably from DAGS. They have a table of every year what what would have been paid out.
Principal and interest.
So yeah, so I took that, and so every year it changes a little bit based on whatever the table is, and that's what they usually send us a memo, pay this. And so I took that, and from 27, 28, 29, and so on, basically that number is this expense. And then it becomes 3.1 million, and then that goes into 29 to start off, right? And then so on and so on. So until it goes down to zero. Yeah. And so that's what that is. So this number here will carry forward, and actually so will this number here, right? Because a revolving fund, the money.
So we will be cleared out with this appropriation.
If Gov signs the budget, then
we're zero.
It's a huge help. Yeah, it's a huge help.
Okay, and then my next question is, when it does become zero, what is that dollar amount that will be continue to be collected from the leases?
Oh, from the revenue from Waihole?
Mark, sorry to add to that. If the appropriation goes through,
yeah,
and it should cover the remaining full principal and interest, correct?
Yes.
Correct.
Okay, then from there, what would be the annual revenues plus, I guess, the schedule for staying on top of R&M? So you would less that, and then we would have a a true estimate of what the remaining net
Yeah.
revenue would be.
So in general, the revenue for Waihole annually is about $1.2 million.
Okay.
Yeah, that's typically what it has been. It's been slowly, it goes up and down, so it's not, but it's about 1.2, and that's reflected here as
Okay.
revenue. Yeah.
And then what is the estimated annual R&M and maybe reserve
Hmm.
figure? Because then we could know like, okay, of the 1.2, how much we really have to invest in other water systems for ADC. I'll also add, is there a way we could explore moving forward of ways to increase the revenue? I'm not saying increase the rates, but do we have other opportunities out there to increase users?
Yes, and so that is definitely something we would like to do, where there are some people near the system who are on well water or different kinds of water, and there's and of course there has been a reduction in farmland out in that area, and so that's probably something that we would have to discuss with CWAR, because there's a declaration order that shows where the water can go right now. So it would, to expand the footprint would be quite a task. But that's where I think part of what we want to request is we do need somebody to help with master planning the water. Because on a short-term basis, getting water to our current tenants or current farmland that doesn't have water, so we can generate revenue. Plus, what's the long-term plan for handling surface water? Because we do a lot of surface water. We have a few wells, but we know that surface water, in the future will be the choice for agriculture. And if we can capture a lot of the high rainfalls and things, that's going to be good for just managing the resource, that finite resource. So, that is part of our request, is we do need someone to help us with that.
Yeah,
Someone with some expertise.
It's important because to the deputy director's point, because once we clear this too, we got to be able to show users, because I'm assuming based on what we're talking about, you folks don't intend to give any rebate.
No, but
not.
yeah.
Right. So I think we gotta be prepared to, when questioned, if questioned, explain why there's no rebate after the bond has been cleared.
Yeah, and I think that's where, where the discussion is. We do need to create some way to properly and fairly assess all the benefiting, whoever's benefiting from it, actual costs, right? It's, like, again, to be stated, we're not here to try to make a lot of money, but we want to just break even. It would be great, right? So to make it affordable for the users, but just cover costs.
Your R&M makes sense, we just
correct. Yeah. So and there are good plans. Department of Agriculture, DLNR, they've done quite a few studies. We've been relying on those studies, but it would be great to get, someone with some expertise to help us. Like,
I think when I read the Hawaii Farm Bureau, or when I watched their testimony, I think part of the reason for supporting it, they kind of hinted towards, I think, clearing and some kind of rebate for farmers. So we just want to be very clear.
We've always felt that getting it cleared would stabilize the costs. Otherwise, there was a slow increase, right? There was a steady increase, because for a while the system was losing money. The costs exceeded, the revenue, and so a number of years ago, I can't remember what the year it was, but there was an annual increase. And so that we're going to be discussing that today with the staff, because if we get this appropriation, we probably don't want to keep increasing. But again, I think we're going to need some help assessing what the fair what the actual costs are, right? I mean, and that way we can share with all the users, this is the cost, and so your dollar per, however it's broken out. I think I'd like to follow the model that DAB and I think probably maybe DLNR, but DAB for sure, does that regularly, and I think we want to kind of emulate sort of that practice. But we got to bring that before the board because there is no accommodation for that, including even things like fuel changes, right? I mean, we know fuel got very expensive this year, and there was no way for us to increase, just suddenly charging somebody more, right? So we need to be able to have a path forward on that too. So and explain it that way, right? When the actual costs, and I think that's fair to share with all the users. I think that would be. I don't think. I think that's the correct way to show the justification.
There is, if I could, Chair Hinazumi, there is a policy statute decision that is before the admin committee because Deputy Director just alluded to if there's extra funds, those funds could be used for other water systems. But in our statute 163D 15.5, this is 325 is the Waihole Water System Revolving Fund, and it is very specific in saying those funds are from the revenue of Waihole and they're to be used for the expenses of Waihole. So there needs to be a statute or policy change in regards to, is this revolving fund going to change names? Is there going to be a separate revolving fund for each water system? Is there just going to be a revolving fund for all ADC water systems? Is there a revolving fund just by county for water systems?
Okay, yeah, let's look into that for
that's another.
Well,
another
I mean,
yeah.
I think so too, because Waihole, this was created when ADC was created. This is part of the reason why ADC was created. But now that there's this further expansion of other water projects that are similar to this,
Mhm.
If you're managing water as a totality,
Mhm.
maybe the chief executive of ADC should have some control over how you move those resources, along with the board, because water is water, right? I mean, same. The reason it was created this way is because at the time this is what it was.
Right.
ADC is more than that now. Yeah.
Yeah, that's something that I've had discussion with ED before, is that, as you go back to what the statute and the mission is of acquiring these assets, land, irrigation systems, infrastructure, the org chart in itself too is going to be revised. You're going to have like a water systems branch. You're going to have a property management branch. Whatever you start building out, then it helps you understand what capacity you need. So both I think to the point that Wendy just said, the current revolving fund, as well as the org chart, was based on a certain point in time. And as we grow and expand, those will need to be revised and revisited.
I agree. And so the timing of this is good because the new fiscal year starts in a few days, like a week. So I think what we're going to be able to do is we're going to start. Right, we're going to start the year. We'll close the last year and start the next year, and then we'll be able to report to the admin committee regularly on where we are as we move forward. And then I think the admin committee can provide guidance on some of these decisions on what to pull the trigger on with respect to contracts and what have you. So I think that's where. From a timing standpoint, this is ideal. We're really, having discussions with Chair Hinazumi on how to improve this. And so we're going to be tweaking this to get it to a point where it's in a format that, provides more detail. I mean, I don't have a lot of detail right now, but we certainly will as we move forward.
Yeah, so one thing, just a simple formatting. The Deputy Director, what you had mentioned, trying to get the picture of, hey, what's our annual operating budget, taking out this appropriation. So that's one of the things we'll we'll look to just move that appropriation below the line, so you can just quickly get to this, $500,000 number, and know that, and on an, well, at least for fiscal 28, we're looking to be plus, positive 500,000, at least in terms of the water systems. And then elsewhere throughout, what Mark's been working on, it's a work in progress. A lot of, a lot that Mark has to do. So we'll keep tweaking it.
Yep. Any other questions on this one? We'll move forward to 29.
Okay, so
Oh,
Mark,
sorry. Yeah.
before you move on, I think some of the basic points we need to make is that, looking at fiscal 28, you started with the general fund, and then you got the revolving fund, and then you got this water system fund. And then the overall picture, as we're seeing at the bottom of this page now, is, a $2.2 million, annual operating loss. And that is a number we need to close the gap on ASAP in order to become, as self-sufficient as we can. Otherwise, that's a number we got to keep going back to, in terms of getting an appropriation to subsidize our operation. So, that's the big picture, right now. And, Mark is working really hard, trying to get the numbers as, as accurate, as possible. It is, there's a lot. So, not that easy. Like he mentioned, some of it is projections into the future. Basically, maintaining the same baseline that we're at today. Revenue, we need to look, Deputy Director mentioned, what kind of possibilities we have to, basically, bring more users into the system, to increase revenue. We will need to take a look at our policies on our leasing, and how we go about our rates, common area maintenance fees or assessments, when we need to make improvements, or when there's things like the NPDES testing, things come up. Expenses, it's not a simple thing to just cut, because one practice we don't want to get to is just deferring everything, and that snowballs, leads to catastrophic losses. So those are things we need to still stay on top of, on a recurring basis. But you see, we all see the number, that we are looking to target to reduce. Before Mark moves on to 29, any further discussion on?
Just one, Chair.
Yep, go ahead.
Mark, when we talk about this negative number, it'd be helpful to, when you say like discussion regarding options, if there's a column, if can, because we do have options, right?
Mhm.
You folks have asked the board to defer a significant amount of lease rent payments for a bunch of farmers. So, that is a option, right? So it would be kind of helpful to know, like, based on the farmers that we've deferred lease rent for 2 years, in that 2 years, when that 2 years is done, what that revenue is going to be, because those are all at the new lease rent rates too, right? So
Correct.
that's a significant, I think, amount of money.
Yeah, I agree. And, so obviously the big shift from 27 to this 28 is moving all the a lot of the general funded items, and it's really about 2 point. It's almost exactly the same number, you know, and a lot of things got moved, and so when that happens, you know, but you're absolutely right, Chair. You know, I'll add. Yeah, we'll add that in so that um, it's easier to see the sort of the decision tree, right? Is what you're talking about. Is like
Well,
if you go
yeah, so
this or that way, right?
decision
Yeah,
tree plus two, a deputy director or director Tokyo have to go to the legislature to present this budget. You know, it. I think one of the problems we have when ADC talks about leases is we talk about this number. And so the simple math is always the staff, the finance, and the way I'm set. They look at that. Oh, perfect. 30,000 acres times $1,800, whatever per acre per. You know what I mean? And then they
yeah,
figure, but
yeah,
that's not a true number
yeah.
because there's a portion of that that's not even being charged. You guys have asked for
Correct.
exemptions, so I think it's helpful for leadership to understand, or so we can see here that although we are saying we're at 90% lease, only 75% is being paid, or whatever it is. And then because I think where we caught up is there's an assumption that they have all this money, why are they asking us for X, Y, and Z when we have issues. So
Correct.
I think it's if that ever is presented to deputy director or whoever, at least they can understand, like, oh no, why are we at 80% lease, only X amount is being charged or whatever.
Right. And I think you're exactly right. It's and I believe that's why this happened, and not just to us, right? It's quite a few different. They shifted this and say, you got to see how you can pay these things. And what I believe the intention is to come up with a plan to actually eventually cover these, actual operating costs fairly. So I agree. That's a good. We'll come up with a way to include that sort of that asset potential, right? And there's going to be some timing on that, and then what it would take to get there. So, okay, yeah, okay.
I also think too,
it.
it helps us to prioritize, and this goes to another question I have about where in here are we talking about board member Okimoto's questions about how are we going to deal with those leases that
that's coming
the
up
water,
in a little bit.
The water issues, right?
Yeah. So these first couple of the 2829 was primarily to show sort of a for lack of a better saying, is kind of a potential outcome, right? And I'm not going to say worst case scenario or best case scenario, but it's kind of, I think this is a fair example of if everything is flat, nothing changes, this is what the outcome is going to be. So, obviously the point I think you're making is, what are we going to do? What changes are we going to make? What are we going to request? And what's the plan to move forward? And so if we go to the next 29, it's very similar, right? Going to 29 because like I said, it's I didn't change a lot. I just kind of kept it going. The appropriation would change, right? We would do some of these different things, and the expenses would exceed revenue. But it's like some of these things are, to address, like your point on the lease. And I put it in this, I might have put in the wrong cell, but so like Galbraith suddenly, is reflecting, this is in 29, right? This is FY29. There's a significant increase in rent, mainly because of those farmers. We gave them that exemption for 2 years, right? And so now in 29, your revenue suddenly increases significantly, right? Doesn't get us completely over the hump, but that's kind of one of those things. And then as we increase land, and then of course we won't have, hopefully, as many of the NPDES costs, because we would have, covered those things, hopefully. But again, not certainly. But even like if we add in Grove Farm, right? You have Grove Farm, we should be starting to lease some of that property. So I think right now there's about 500 acres that have tenants. Right? And so once that property is taken over, we'll be generating some revenue there. And then there'll be additional acres that still could be leased within at the 29 and beyond, going out to the 1,000 acres. And then, the water situation.
Mark, sorry, before
Sorry,
we move on to water,
yeah,
just to follow up on Chair's point, to put this in perspective for the committee, that Galbraith number, if you look at fiscal 28, that number, the revenue number is like 533, I think. And so you can see that the number more than doubles the revenue number, that Mark is talking about. And
yeah,
what Mark did is, projected out, the 2-year deferral period, and that's why it lands in 29. And he's focused on then looking at improvements that we need to do, right, in order to provide the water to those tenants so we can start charging
Yeah.
them at the increased lease rate. So that just shows the importance of focusing on the revenue generation and focusing on projects that need to be done in order to allow us to capture that increased revenue.
Mhm.
And so that's a good point. And so this is excellent, I don't want to say exercise, but this is an excellent way, as we move forward, I think you'll be able to, the committee and then as well as the board will be able to see, and then the decisions get a little clearer, right?
Sorry, Mark, before you go
Okay.
on, one more,
Yeah.
actually,
Yeah.
one more question about the Grove Farm.
Okay.
So the people there are people on the land already.
Yes.
And so my assumption is ADC is here to help farmers. So we're not displacing anybody who's on the land, right? They're going to become
No.
ADC tenants.
Correct. So that's what and this is an estimate. I think it was 500 acres at like 400 something. I forget what the dollar figure was. Dollar per acre. I should know that, but I don't remember exactly. But we figure, by 29, obviously we should own the property probably, if not 27, 28, but, we'll slowly improve and lease more of the property. And then, and slowly start increasing that. So I don't think it's a full 1,000 acres that is necessarily leasable, but it's pretty close. But you have to take some out for field roads and what common area roads, I should say, and some of that infrastructure. So it won't be a true 1,000. It won't be $400,000 if it's $400 an acre. But we'll get, once we lease that out, and I believe we can in that area, it will be, we'll slowly be increasing income there. But to your point, then there might be higher expenses too, right? Because I think that's not surprising. Right now, that's that may be underreported here.
But I think, Chair Watts, to your point, there are tenants on the land, and I'm not aware of acquisition in the history of ADC where we were acquiring ag land that had tenants, which requires, taking a look at our policies in regards to, are we going to allow, the tenants to just continue where they're at, or how do we engage with them if in fact they'd like more land? And you've pointed out in the past, it's not just that they have farms, they put in irrigation systems. So we don't want to rip them out and put them somewhere else when they've already put in that kind of infrastructure. But
Well, I don't disagree, Wendy, but the point I'm trying to make too is that throughout this whole process, you haven't brought this up at all. And looking at his budget numbers, it's probably the first inkling that I've heard from your staff or from you guys that this won't cause a disruption, because I have heard from the community that they're worried about ADC causing a disruption because of ADC's non-committal to commit to the current users. I don't think we exist to displace people. So, what I'm bringing up is I just want to make sure that we don't acquire ag land to kick farmers off ag land. That's kind of counter to what we do, right? I mean, if we're going to acquire farmland only for ADC to go in there and then evict everybody, so there needs to be a commitment to the farmers that are currently currently there. Yeah, I'm not saying we don't circumvent any kind of processes, but I just want to make sure we're committed to that. So
Thank you.
Okay. Okay, so go on to 29. Wait, were we on 20? Yeah, we were on 29. Okay, so 29, you will see some of these increases, and then the water system, right? Again, these numbers are carryover, so we will separate them out so it's less confusing on this. And so again, this is the amount of money that will go forward, but the total revenue less expenses goes down by about $900,000. Again, keeping things relatively flat and increasing land rents, that not increasing the rent, but increasing the number of acres leased. And so we're getting, it's getting lower. And so as part of that, it's reflected in some of the next tables on our actual requests, right, for some of these things to address. And some of I think we're on the same page on a lot of these. So, like I said, I kept a lot of this stuff fairly flat. A lot of these numbers, like for the Waiwa irrigation system, we got that from the due diligence, but we'll look into it and see how we can make improvements there too. Okay, so getting into some of the things that make it a little smaller. The things that that we'd like to request is not really requesting for funding, since we're going to have to pay everything on revolving funds. And I don't know how this process works, so Deputy, you probably have to tell. In reality, we know do we need to increase the ceiling? And I'm not sure if this was done even for 27, so we got to find out. Because if you're moving a lot of what was normally paid on the appropriation over to revolving funds, making sure that we increase. I think that was done in 27. I take that back. I think it was 27. If the budget gets approved as it is, but going forward, we might have to request an increase in the ceiling to account for, let's say, we're looking at. This is not a request for funding; it's a request to increase the ceiling, and that provides the ADC, increases to salaries. And that's not to say that we're just going to say, okay, we got this, now we're going to just heap the whole thing in. It's sort of a maximum, right? Or a step. And then so let's say if we have that ceiling, and if someone's been working, 15 years, and they've been, and we might request an increase for that individual based on their performance, you get what I'm saying. So we just want to put the ceiling in to request to cover that potential. I don't think we're going to, and it's not, like I said, not the intention to just increase our cost by, total of this is a total $640,000 a year, because we won't be able to pay that, right? But as we increase our revenue or improve our cost structure, I think it's fair to give the employees, especially the people who have earned it, a fair compensation. And so what we did was, it's not perfect yet, but I looked through the state of Hawaii's DHERD. Doesn't always match up, right? I mean, it's a different, whether it's civil service, there's different categories and they don't always match up, but kind of looked at what the private industry, salaries are, at least a range, and that's kind of how we came up with this cost. Because for us right now, when you play off, when it's revolving funds, we have to pay the base salary plus the fringe benefits. So we have to cover everything, right? Opposed to when it's general funds, I think it's handled a little differently. So our personal, it's called personnel services, which is like PNS, which is your salaries. We have to cover all the costs. So that's kind of where it came from.
So all these positions are special funded?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. And they were on general funds and they moved over. And so, the total move was probably, sorry, I don't have I think it was probably like $1.7 million, $1.6 million. So, you can see the significance in the budget shortfall, right? Where you can kind of see where a big chunk of it comes from. But I know, it's the intention. We have to work to be able to pay our bills. So, okay, that's the request for ceiling increase. The other one would be a potential ceiling increase to allow for, because if we're going to do, like the WIS and these different things, these different systems, there may be more costs. And so I'm not sure how even this works. And I just put a sort of placeholder number in there because if we need to pay bills and the ceiling isn't high enough, we actually, even if we have the funds, we can't expend it, right? So, again, it may have been addressed in the budget. I'm not positive, but I just want to bring this to the attention that we might request the ceiling increase because if we have WIS, and I know right now there's a discussion for the East Kauai irrigation system, there will be bills to be paid and we probably need a request on ceiling. Okay. And then from a general funds point of view, these again reflect what, we shared earlier, right? So, we're going to need to request some funding to cover the shortage. But if I think we gotta hone this down so that by the time the end of the year comes, we gotta have a really solid plan to share because if we don't, we know, we gotta have a good plan to show that we're gonna be able to pay our bills, right? Otherwise, it's hard to keep asking. Like I think the committee members have already said, you can't keep asking, right? So number
If
three.
we could stop for a second, Mark.
Yeah.
One of the ideas that was discussed at the last admin meeting was taking a percentage of the CIP projects and allocating those funds towards,
That's coming up.
coverage. Okay.
Sorry, that's coming up.
Okay.
Okay. So yeah. So the and so some of the things, that we wanted to do, and this is, and actually, I probably have to go back again a little bit, but some of the things that we want to do is with requesting, these are some of the requests that we would like to make for 28. Okay. But one of the things that is in the 27 I went past it. I apologize. I got to go back to where that was. But the 27 spend was, I was hoping we could hire someone to help us with these water systems, because like it's been pointed out, like the 500 and that acreage in on Oahu, that some of them don't have water. This is also true for some of the other systems that we operate, but we would like to hire a consultant to help us come up with a quick plan to do that. And we don't want to wait till 28, 29 to do that. I think we wanted to see if we can do that in 27, right, as a consultant to help us to do that. And sorry, I passed it earlier and I neglected to properly point that out. But these are I think the basic operating things that we might need, that we would like to request if the admin committee approves. Again, there might be a need for some more NPES items. We're not sure, but we're estimating hopefully it's going down. It'll be less. Some equipment. This is for some of the Oahu water systems. I think after the Kona low, we realized we were very fortunate that we were able to get some equipment very quickly and address some of the needs rapidly to get the systems running. So we may want to purchase, and we would need to be able to store this, and it'll, probably would be in the Wahiawa area somewhere. But because we'll have the two systems, the equipment I think could be shared, with the two. Then the vehicle replacement, and a new vehicle, an additional vehicle for the water manager.
Mark, can you scroll down?
Oh, sorry, is it not visible? Can you not see it? Maybe make it bigger. Is that okay? So, one new the ADC vehicle, one new vehicle for ADC in 29, because right now staff is basically using their personal vehicles to get around, because we don't really have a pool vehicle. So there would be like a pool vehicle that people would, if they're gonna drive out to a site visit, they could use that. And then the property management software is a licensing fee for the BRD licensing fee. So these are the operational items that we would like to request, including the ceiling increase for 28, 29. Any questions on this? Sorry.
No.
Oh,
after Chair Watts.
yeah, go ahead.
I'm just gonna say, no, Mark, the money you have in there for the anticipating the legal fees, that's exactly the thing we've been talking about, is being able to anticipate some of these things. So I like that that's there. The vehicle, is one adequate?
It's a replacement. So we have 3.
Oh, okay.
And we want to cycle, unfortunately, they were kind of purchased at the same time. So I think what we would like to do is, so we'll have some vehicles that are probably getting pretty old, but what we'd like to do is cycle so that we're not buying 3 or 4 at one time, with maybe one, and then the following year another one, or something like that, right? And you stretch it out over a 5-year period. Eventually, and I think the ideal situation would be is we generate enough revenue where we set aside, as part of the planning for assets and things, right? Vehicles, equipment, buildings, you start setting aside, if you have to paint the building, let's say every, so many years, or re-roof every 7 years or whatever it is, we'd set aside a portion. every year so that hopefully we could cover most of the regular R&M. We're not there yet, right? But until then, we might have to ask for this. But it's one, and then we'll, when another vehicle ages out, we'll request to replace another one, and so on. I think the legislature always wants us to request, even if they change the funding to revolving funds so that we pay for it. I think the practice has always been that they want to see us they want to know when vehicles are being purchased.
Yeah, I don't disagree. I just want to make sure that you guys are asking for what you need, and if you need more, you need more. So just want to make sure you're asking for enough.
Yeah.
And then another random question: where do you folks park these vehicles?
Right now at Halava, it's a good question. At Halava, we have their Department of Agriculture and Biosecurity. There's a sort of a lot. I think the area is shared. There's a DLNR group there.
If you're at the office, you got to drive to another place to pick up these vehicles.
Correct.
Yes.
Correct. And so what we were trying to do is find a parking spot near the office, and I think we sort of might have one for a state vehicle, right? It's not necessarily it's not for personal vehicles, but we're getting closer, because as you can imagine, parking in town is a significant premium, and there's not a lot of just spaces open, right? So I think there's a waiting list right now, but we're looking at hopefully having one near the office so that.
I mean, there's a waiting list for even government vehicles.
For government parking places, yes.
Yeah, there's we were talking to DAGs and we're hoping to get something, and they're helping. They're very helpful. It's just as you can imagine, in town it's a real premium. Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah. And especially for trucks, right? It would probably be like a truck-like vehicle, and it doesn't sometimes fit.
The height restrictions in the parking garages make it even more challenging.
Fit. Yeah. So the CIP. So before I'm going to go back a little bit. So I apologize. I'm going to go back to something that I wanted to mention. Here it is. Okay, so some of the things that for 27 that we want to call out to let the admin committee know is we really would like that some irrigation expertise, and we need some help because we believe that's going to help get more farmers on the land. And so we kind of looking at that, and as something we would want to consider hiring. And these things were actually reflected on the tables, but I just wanted to call out, especially number one, because I know the board is the direction is let's get more of these farmers farming, and the best way to do that on a lot of the property is the water is the limiting factor. So, but we need some expertise there, like hire a consultant who can help us plan that out. So that's something we want to bring before the board for that. And then just to point out, these are the current CIP projects that we have. There are about 19 active ones. There's actually more, but I didn't include them on the list because they're quite a ways in motion, and they're getting, they're pretty near done. But the point really was to say, to get board guidance on these are CIP. You cannot use CIP to pay salary, right? But you can hire consultants. So with the intention to deliver or move projects forward a little faster, especially things like these. Like this is the one that member Okimoto had questioned, like where are we on the water for this? If we took a percentage, a reasonable percentage without negatively impacting the project itself, hire somebody to help drive some of this forward. I think it would be money well worth spent. And if you look at, and this is just for the purposes of discussion, if I looked at 0.5% for project consultant and another 0.5% for maybe some of their expenses, if we hire them, a consultant to do some of this work, so that's a 1% of the total budget. That's $1.4, $1.5 million. And of course, you would have to make sure that their hours were spent on that project, right? Obviously, you can't move CIP funds around, but I mean, this is just for discussion purposes to say that we would like some board guidance on if we can do something like this for certain projects, especially the ones that drive forward the ability to increase the utilization of ADC property for farming. We would like, this is something that we would like to do, because I think that helps, because we don't have the staff to do all of this, right? We don't have that expertise, but we would like some of that guidance.
So Mark, can I just weigh in here for a second? There had been precedent with an executive memo 97-07, which specifically gave positions for the different departments that had CIP projects. At that point, DOT had 463, DAGS had 119, DLNR had 27, DBED actually had 22 funded positions, and DOE had 3. But over time, they've repealed that to the point that only the DOT and DAGS have CIP project staff funding allocated. And that was one of the ideas that the board had discussed that we had investigated. There's precedent, but there is not current precedent to be able to take any of the percentage of CIP to go towards existing staff or professional development.
I would add that part of the reason for that is because, DAGS is the project management department of the state.
Mm-hmm.
And so when you guys are talking about construction managers, project managers, all these things, any state agency that doesn't have that is what DAGS Public Works does.
Mm-hmm.
So
that's correct.
You need to be running these projects with DAGS and ensuring that. I think the only way you can get around this is if DAGS tells you that they cannot do it. But by law, I think you're actually required to run these projects through DAGS.
And yeah, that's kind of what this is. Aside from, we weren't looking at necessarily using these funds for ADC staff. It was to basically, we need some help, right, and to move these forward, because we don't have this. We don't. So when I read
the statute and the job, it says here, so a Public Works Division, right, coordinates, organizes, directs, right, engineering, architectural services for the state, including land acquisition, planning, designing, inspecting, managing construction projects, facility and quality control, contracting, construction management, and equipping facilities and other improvements for state agencies. So, we should be running, once the appropriations process is complete, governor signs the law, running projects through DAGS to see where they fit in and where they don't fit in. And then once that decision is made, then we look at the next step of,
Yeah. That's correct. And I think that's, what we would, so we just want to sort of put that out there, because I do think to move some of these forward, we need those options. And
but specifically, when it says project consultant and other current expense, that is not staff. That is all external. And we do have a project right now that is being run through DAGS. Mm-hmm. So there is precedent for that.
I understand, Wendy, but I don't understand. So all these requests, though, it's like you're asking for all these positions and all these flexibilities. I don't quite understand where, okay, it's because DAGS told you they can't do any of this?
We have not approached DAGS.
That's my point.
And this will change our org chart.
So that's my point, though. You're asking for, it's like you're asking for something in item E when we haven't even done A, B, C, and D yet? So, what I'm saying is you need to come to us, I think, after you guys have exhausted and say, hey, we've spoken to the comptroller, this cannot be done. Therefore, we need to make up this space, and I want to do these things. We're kind of, I think, to me, we're jumping ahead a little bit, and maybe even breaking the law, right? If we're not running these projects through DAGs, which every agency is required to do, right? The only way you can get around that is if your department possesses engineers, project managers, et cetera, right? So we don't possess those things.
So if we look back at some of the projects, whether, as what Chair Watts is saying, once we're done with the proof of concept, we understand the remaining professional plan, design, and construction and equipment funds that are needed. We have to then say, okay, is this a project we proceed with DAGs because we don't have those positions, the contractors, the engineers, or do we partner again with HCDA? And if we do, as past practice, then that agreement has to come to the board for approval, because then HCDA will help us then deliver that project.
Yep. Yeah. So it could be like HCDA, could be DAB, could be DLNR, right? I mean, for engineers, all those things, right? So
I think that's what we're going to do with these, and that's what, I just wanted to call it out that, we've got all these projects, right? And obviously we definitely need some help to start moving a lot of them forward faster. And nothing against is not a knock against current staff. It's just it's a lot more than we have.
no, Mark, I think I totally understand, and we're here to support, but I just want to make sure we're not violating the law, right? Like there's certain things that like the DAGs is the state's project management department, right? So we can't just circumvent those things because we don't like the timing or the process, right? If the legislature wants to authorize that, that's one thing, but we have to follow. The board can't just vote to approve funds to go hire people or move money around because we want to work around the law. We have to follow the law. So that's all I'm saying is we need to work with DAGs and whoever, HCDA, DAB, DLNR, and when they cannot help us, that's when we go to the next step, I think.
Right.
Okay. That's the and then that's kind of just the point I want to make on that. Sorry. And then the last thing on this discussion is the CIP requests. So the CIP requests are what we did was, of the list that were shared before, we basically narrowed it down to the primary safety and deferred maintenance matters, which you'll see here. Finishing some of these reservoirs, requesting funds to make some repairs to some of the Wahiawa, East Kauai systems, and we're using some good studies that were done by Department of Ag and DLNR for to basically create the to-do list and the monitoring equipment, because especially after the coronal lows, we see that remote monitoring equipment is critical, and so we want to include that, and then some of the significant repairs that are needed for some of the Kauai water systems, including a dam that we currently control is on Kalepa property. And so that's what this is. And then the next couple, and there's another page, but I mean, the next couple here is we want planning for the FPIN EPMF Maui operation, Maui County operation, and then FPIN EPMF for Hawaii Island. This is a planning request funding, and then some funding to right now a lot of work is happening in Whitmore Wahiawa area, and we'd hopefully like to sort of put a ADC office there somewhere. And so with all of the work going on, we just wanted to work with the current, um, uh, the current planning there to at least add a space for us in the future, to site an office there when everything is completed. And then the last one on this list is the purchase of land. And I think we keep putting this on there just so it's there, because adding several thousand acres would help. And then it's exactly what we should be doing as far as ADC is, preserving agricultural land for the future. But I'll just open this up, because I'm sure there's some questions on these. But that's our list of 10 for 28, 29. So we cut it back considerably. We took out a lot of the things out. We just basically chose based on deferred maintenance and safety, and then some future planning.
Well, I think, okay, so a few things then. Regarding operating and CIP, we have to we have to look at 163D and really categorize these themes, these buckets. And when you look at it, you're going to have like agricultural infrastructure and resource management. Under that becomes irrigation systems, your roads, bridges, your reservoirs, dams, etc. Then you have the FPIN and value-added agriculture. Then you have agribusiness development and commercialization. So you have these major themes. Then we have these sub-bullet points on how we deliver each theme. And then these projects then come under those, because we got to be able to tell the narrative. Okay, we can't start with the operating and the CIP budget. We got to start with, okay, here's where ADC has been, and here's where we're headed over the next biennium as it ties to the strategic plan. That will help, I think, further prioritize what we really need as immediate needs and then next steps. Because this list is pared down, thank you, because I was just reviewing the department budgets yesterday, their initial drafts. And there were a lot of requests that I couldn't tell what was the immediate priority. So for example, too, you also mentioned equipment as a result from Kona Low. So there is this public safety and health items we have to address as well. So depending where the board approves, then from there we need to categorize it into those buckets and then tighten up the narrative.
Okay.
Just a question on the office stuff. So the 250,000. So you folks have already spoken to somebody about space?
No.
This is
There's a lot of.
Well, Mark, we've made inquiries into DAGS, and DAGS said there is no existing state-owned office space available that we could move into. They advised us to look at renting non-state owned facilities, and the 250,000 was meant as a design for utilizing the space that ADC currently has out in Whitmore as a potential location rather than renting from another entity.
Space at Whitmore, is that where we met that one time? Those old it used to be Dole office rooms or whatever.
Yep, the one with the ceiling falling in, yes.
Yeah.
Couple things. I think have you guys ever talked to we can just talk to yourselves, because the EPMF, the FPIN side, you guys are in charge of that, right? I mean, is there a way to build some office space in there for you guys?
Maybe.
You guys are, because there's gonna be a bunch of people in there, right? But could that be an option?
I think that's what we would have to do. Yeah, I think we'd have to ask. Sometimes those, when you have food processing, like food or agricultural product handling, there's certain some food safety requirements that you don't really want to have like an office where people are going in and out of. But certainly if a corner of the building or one end of the building, something like that, I think is what you're speaking of. If we can squeeze in there, that would, to have that meeting space, right, which we don't really have. We have no meeting rooms, and staff space, would be, I think, is a
With windows,
necessity.
Mark.
With windows, yes, definitely. But yeah, definitely we need meeting room, and staff space.
I think, one thing that I always kind of laugh at is that we're doing all these projects and building all these things where everybody except ABC, in a sense that you guys are working in a one-room closet, and there's no board room space, there's no adequate space as a quasi-public corporation. There's no space for meeting with high-level executives, etc. Right? There's nothing. So, I think that's a pretty serious matter. I think you guys should look at, I don't think the Dole thing's good. I mean, I think, you're gonna go there. I mean, $250,000 probably barely gonna cover your cubicles.
Yeah.
No,
it's mainly because we're figuring we're going to be part of something and we're going to need some planning.
yeah.
I don't think, it's not like a
It's just
construction
the
money.
design.
Yeah.
And I think one thing we should look at too. I mean, I'm not a huge proponent of renting, but I think we gotta look at. I mean, is there adequate downtown space that works for you? I mean, I don't know what the prices are really, but I think it might help the board to kind of understand what we're talking about. I mean, everybody knows what you live in currently, but what does the alternatives, look like? I do think from an emergency management perspective too, though, it does help to be out that way.
You have a base yard.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like you said, where do you park your trucks and where do you park your equipment? We're going to need something secure.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you, Chair.
Yeah.
Oh, sorry. One more question. The EPMF numbers you guys have in there, was that from CDC? Where did you guys get those numbers from?
I think we had there was a $5 million figure, and truthfully, I'm not sure if it came from CDC or not. But we're realizing, Maui, it's two separate islands, right? So, county, you have Molokai and.
I think we do need this. They're currently working on the proof of concept now. Granted,
Okay.
they're not site specific yet, so we don't know what the infrastructure capacity needs. But as far as the facility above ground, as I've spoken with them, they should be working to some general sense based off of what the users are going to need. So the demand will help to determine the square footage plus the equipment. And then from there, at least it's not exact, but it'll be some number we can use for remaining plan, design, and then construction equipment. So check with UHCDC when they plan to wrap up their current proof of concept for Hawaii and Maui.
Okay. Yeah. And these numbers certainly can be tightened up based on that. We might turn it in this way, but we know it's open to adjustment as it moves through the process. So we will tighten up on this.
Okay.
Any other questions on this?
No.
Okay. Thanks, Mark, for putting this all together. I appreciate, really narrowing down the budget requests and of course, putting a budget together so we can see revenues and expenses. I don't see any action we need to take on it as a committee, except to, I would suggest that at this point, we pass this on to the full board, to review. Mark, there's a few things I can follow up with you on, after based on today's discussion.
Okay.
Just do a further cleaning up of it. So we've got the budget numbers to go along with the to support the request that you have. Yeah.
Okay. Then we'll work on that to prepare a report for the full board. I guess in the next meeting.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
Okay, and then moving on to next agenda item C2, request to review and recommend approval and execution of the certain memorandum of understanding between the Agribusiness Development Corporation and the Hawaii Department of the Attorney General for the payment of legal services related to National Pollutant Discharge Elimination System Permit number HI 0021952. Is there any member from the public who would wish to testify on this item?
No hands raised, Chair.
Okay, do we have a staff report on this?
Chair, I think that we had discussed this a little bit earlier in terms of these are the legal fees that have already been expended. And at this point, we have gone through a contested case. There's been a contested case hearing. We are in a period where Department of Health is actively reviewing. The permit is written in trying to address the 9-page response that ADC had given that was not included in the permit draft. There is a mid-August deadline in which the Department of Health is supposed to be issuing a potential revision. And so the legal fees that have been expended is for work done up until this point. We're not aware of any pending additional lawsuits at this point that would require additional funding beyond this. But we are in a holding pattern and should be actively using our attorney in discussions with the Department of Health as they are reviewing all of the stated changes that ADC had suggested. But, to Chair Watts's point earlier, this is basically agreeing to a loan that has interest associated with it for ADC to cover the costs of the legal fees that have been spent.
Okay, and then I just had a couple other questions to make sure it's going to be clear to our committee. So the initial amount that was approved, the $150,000, has that been paid out?
It's paid fully, yes.
Okay, so the number we have, this 845,000, is that in addition to the 150,000?
That is correct.
Okay, so just to confirm for this committee that the outstanding number is at 845,617, and that the the agreement would be up to $1 million. Okay, so that would give leeway for another $155,000 or so. Okay, so you said and what's in the MOA right now shows the outstanding amount due through May 5th of 2026. So over the past month and a half, there's been no additional expenses.
There has been no additional direction given to expend time to Alston and Bird.
So the question is, has any time been expended by Alston Bird?
I need to get back to you to see if there's generally the billing is a month late. So I will get back to the admin committee.
Okay, so we need to know that to know what additional liability we're looking at. And you mentioned, department, basically got remanded back to the Department of Health to review the permit. So are we going to need, you mentioned, the need or at least potential need for legal services during that, further discussion with the Department of Health. Do we have any idea on what that might be?
We don't have a projected estimate or budget in writing from Alston and Bird.
We'll need that as well.
Mhm.
And then, of course, the overarching is that, yes, none of this was approved by the board, and that any potential needs to come in from the board before any approvals to move forward. Okay, let me open this up to our committee members. Is there any discussion?
I think it would be good if the ED does any request and goes through our deputy AG and the attorney general and not straight to Alston and Bird, so we don't keep getting these. Every inquiry generates a fee.
Yeah, I would agree, Chair and Wendy. And it's not to limit you. It's just I think like the way I look at the special deputy is that it's brought on to augment the AG, right? So really, the AG is still our lawyer, so we want to work with them, and then they can engage the special deputy as they need, not so much us engaging directly. So I think that'll help with making sure the costs that we incur are exactly because of what we need, and that's something that the AGs could provide themselves. So that'll be helpful, I think.
Like I'm looking at the line items on the proposed MOA, and from November 4th through May 5th, and basically what's behind these revenues were any of these charges, could they have been mitigated, reduced if we went through the AG first, our deputy AG, or was that the process that was done and then therefore deputy AG said, nope, check with special counsel? Was this generated mainly through just direct contact between you and the special deputy?
It was a combination of some of the charges are attributed to other parties reaching out directly to Alston and Bird without going through ADC or without going through the AG's office. In regards to the correspondence, it was always including the AG's department. It was never around the AG's department. But if you're saying, did we specify, did the AG, make the request specifically of the AG to engage the?
No, I'm not asking that. I'm saying as for you as the ED, was any of the work done before you went to special counsel checked with our state AG, and then therefore they said, no, that'll be checked, then redirected you, delegated that to the special counsel, so we could have reduced some of this cost. So moving forward, definitely work only through our AG and then let them decide whether or not to seek special counsel.
Understood.
Any further discussion?
Chair, just one last question. So with the when we so if we're going to ask for, or Chair Hanazumi, we're going to ask for an appropriation for the entire total. Is that the intent?
Yes.
Okay. And so what so I guess assuming this happens, that we get it in July 1 of 2027, we got to account for the interest too in that total. So just want to make sure we have that in there too.
Okay, anything further? Okay, so what I'm hearing is that the motion in front of this committee would be to approve the memorandum of understanding between the Agribusiness Development Corporation and the Hawaii Department of the Attorney General for the payment of legal services related to National Pollutant Discharge Elimination System permit number HI 0021952, and also that the executive director is directed to um, let's see, to discuss any matters related to this with our Attorney General first, and have the Attorney General's office determine the next courses of action, if any, with special counsel. Does that sound about right?
Yes.
So with that in front of us, can I get a motion to approve?
Motion.
Second.
Okay. Motion by Chair Watts, second by Deputy Director Wicker. Any abstentions or objections? Okay, hearing none, the motion is approved. Okay, no information. Oh, sorry, go ahead. Oh, okay. No informational items in front of us today. With that, can I get a motion to adjourn?
Motion.
Second.
Yeah, motion by Chair Watt, second by Deputy Director. Any objections or abstentions? Okay, hearing none, this meeting is adjourned. Thank you.
Thank you, everybody.
Mhm.
Thank you.